Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Music Weekly. This is the show where I give you guys the top 5 prog headlines for the week, give you guys some singles to check out, and give you updates on the channel and what's happening here on Nathan on Shuffle. So excited to dive into it. As always, would appreciate a like or a comment if you're able, and always appreciate new subscribers if you haven't subscribed yet. So thank you for joining me and for supporting my show, and let's get into the news today. So some interesting stuff going on, a lot of old school prog remasters and stuff coming out from legacy bands, but first I want to get into the new releases that came out this weekend. So this is the first prog headline as the new releases for the week. We've got Trevor Rabin's Rio, which was released. Trevor Rabin is a notable figure who was in Yes in the 80s and early 90s, and this is an incredible solo album from him that shows a diversity of sound and showcases his incredible playing skills on the guitar, and it's well worth checking out. I'm going to be doing a review of it this week, but definitely a solid release from Trevor Rabin if you're into his sound and style. Then we've got Advent Horizon, who did their album A Celta Call Home. I did a review of it this past week, yesterday, in fact, or 2 days ago, I should say. One of my favorite albums of the year, a lesser-known U.S. prog band, more in the vein of like a Rush, or more of a melodic prog band. Very great songwriting, great vocal harmonies and effects. Little flourishes of like prog metal at times, like Hackett or Dream Theater, but mostly in a more melodic vein with just beautiful songwriting and great lyrics. So really a fan of that release and want people to check that out since it's a little bit lesser known. Two revisitings of older albums. The first one that is less successful to me is Roger Waters' The Dark Side of the Moon Redux, which a lot of people are talking about. Not really my thing. I don't want to like put down an artist or put down something that people are enjoying, but for me, it just isn't necessary. Roger Waters' solo stuff isn't really my bag anyways, and it's a lot of really dark, moody versions with his spoken word sections that just aren't really my cup of tea as a listener, so not really a big fan of that, and it sounds like a lot of fans aren't really a huge fan either, but you know, I'm sure there's people out there who really like this and think it's a really cool reimagining of the album, but to me it's a little bit unnecessary, and I don't really understand why it exists in some ways, but an interesting little curiosity if you want to check it out. The other one that to me is much more successful is the Deer Hunters' Migrant Returned. It's basically the 10th anniversary of Migrant, and Casey Crescenzo decided to revisit the album Migrant, and instead of just a reissue or, you know, just a simple re-releasing the album, it's been remixed, it's been just totally redone in a lot of different ways. The track listing is different. They're adding in a lot of the extra bonus tracks and such to make it feel a lot fresher and make it feel like a new product, even though it's music that they've already released before. And it just sounds fresh and current and just a really great sound to it. Just bringing back all the feelings I had and how great Migrant was when I first heard it, and just bringing back those memories, but adding a new layer of freshness and a new sound to it as well. So really great album there. Definitely strongly recommend that if you're a fan of the Deer Hunter like I am. Just one of the best modern bands, in my opinion, that's out there on the market. So definitely check that out. Now into some of the older band stuff that I was talking about. Item number 2, a remastered super deluxe edition of the Yes album is coming out in November. This is expanded version of the Yes album with rarities, 2 previously unreleased concerts, and fresh mixes by Steven Wilson, including an immersive Dolby Atmos mix to be released through Rhino Records on November 24th. So it features a lot in the packaging, a lot of stuff in this release. You know, it's interesting to me how they come out with these deluxe editions of these albums. It's one album, but they're able to find enough material to fill a whole huge box set full of stuff. So you've got 4 CDs, a Blu-ray disc, a vinyl LP, including Steven Wilson's newly remastered version of the original album on both CD and LP. 2 previously unreleased concerts from 1971 are in the set as well. The first was recorded just a few weeks before the Yes album was released, and the second recorded 6 months later during the band's US tour. So it's a cool way to celebrate one of the biggest classic albums in the genre, and it should be a fun package for those who are into these elaborate big box sets and getting a few different rarities and new material. Of course, the Steven Wilson mixes of the album have been out already before. 2014, I believe, is when the Steven Wilson remix was released, and there's a vinyl box set of the, like, from the Yes album to Relayer, I believe, of his mixes, and he's made several albums. But it should be really cool to see some new mixes, a 2023 remaster, 5.1 surround, Dolby Atmos. So all the bells and whistles for all fans of the different formats, and hearing this album in many different ways, bringing in new technology and really giving it a new home and a new vibrancy, perhaps. So definitely one to check out. Jethro Tull's long-delayed War Child 2 is going to be released in November also, November 24th through Parlophone Records. It was originally slated for January 2022, so it's been very delayed, but it's finally coming. It's a companion release, essentially, to the 1974 album War Child. And it features a selection of Steven Wilson remixes that have been previously unavailable on vinyl. Basically tracks that were recorded during the War Child sessions from 73 to 74, and that were originally featured on 2014's War Child 40th Anniversary Theater Edition. So a lot of cool rarities and interesting little curios here as well to create a new release that should be interesting for fans of Jethro Tull and the War Child album. A lot of interesting selections here that I think could be of interest to fans, so I wanted to point that one out. And then we've got Steve Hackett. We're covering like all the bases of all these big major prog acts, but Steve Hackett is releasing To Watch the Storms and Wild Orchids on vinyl for the first time, I believe. These are albums that were released in 2003 and 2006, it seems. So early 2000s albums, essentially. And this is their first time, I believe, on vinyl, and they're coming out December 8th through Inside Out Music. Steve Hackett is the legendary former guitarist of Genesis from back in their heyday, from their prog era in the 70s. And he's had an illustrious solo career as well, and just released a solo concert album, featuring his band, doing all old Genesis material, Foxtrot at 50, I believe that was called, plus some of his solo material. So he's still out there and vibrant and really a big part of the prog scene still today, and it's cool to see these 2000s albums being released, To Watch the Storms and Wild Orchids. So should be a cool release to check out if you're interested to get these on vinyl and experience them in a new format. So should be a cool thing. And then number 5, we've got Camel releasing their 32-disc set called Airborne, the MCA and Decca years, 1973 to 1984, also releasing November 24th. A big day for classic prog, right? I might have mentioned this, I believe I've mentioned this on the channel before, but since it's coming up eminently, this is a 32-disc super deluxe box set, including newly remastered versions of every Camel album and single issued between 1973 and 1984, some previously unreleased material, Blu-rays, and a lavish illustrated book with essays and a poster. So 3 new mixes of 3 concerts: the Marquee Club London 1974, Hammersmith Odeon 1976, and a Hammersmith Odeon 1977. Previously unreleased outtakes from album recording sessions and BBC radio in-concert appearances. So a lot of material. There's some new stereo and 5.1 surround mixes of Camel, Mirage, and music inspired by the Snow Goose, Moon Madness, and Nude. These are from Stephen W. Taylor. So a lot of material from the classic era of the band. There should be some separately released remastered vinyl as well for 4 of their most iconic albums: Camel, The Snow Goose, Mood Madness, and Nude. So a lot of material to be released if you're a Camel fan, and should be a lot of fun. They're a band that I really enjoy from the classic prog era. A little bit of, they're not usually considered one of the big 6 of the prog world. Maybe they're right hovering beneath that, but definitely a notable band that many people love. Very very great stuff. Definitely worth checking out. Then a couple of quick hits here. Those are the main 5 items, but to get a little bit of a newer prog bent on some of these other items, John Mitchell is announcing an Evening with European date tour here. November and December is when that's happening. Billed as an Evening with John Mitchell, Songs and Stories Live and Acoustic 2023, so should be cool. Mitchell's currently on tour in Canada with Arena, but this should be a cool little acoustic tour, probably focusing on a lot of his individual material from, he's been in so many different groups, so he has a lot to pull from between It Bites, Lonely Robot, Kino, Frost, Arena, all of that stuff. He's been a big figure in modern progressive rock, so it'll be interesting to see what he picks and chooses for his little session here, his Evening with tour. So should be a lot of fun, should be a good experience. Definitely a great artist and great live experience there. And then Dave Kersner is releasing a new 6-song EP called The Eye. This is 6 songs from his upcoming solo concept album, Heart Landmines Volume 1. And so this is available now on his Bandcamp page. Should be coming out soon on all major music platforms. A little bit of maybe a teaser to see what's to come from a notable artist, so I wanted to mention it. His new album should be coming out October 18th. So that should be cool to look forward to. But this is a cool little teaser and taster for what to expect from him. And so that's another cool item that I wanted to mention. So now into our Prog singles list. This is a really good list of songs that I hope you'll check out. Check the description for links to these, to the YouTube videos, to check these songs out for yourself. The first one on my list is Pattern Seeking Animals, Underneath the Orphan Moon. Their 4th album is coming out in October this month. In fact, it's coming out soon, in a few weeks, October 27th, via Inside Out Music. An incredible group that follows the thread of like the newest era of Spock's Beard with a few of those members, but doing something completely unique in their own. Really great track here. A bit of a departure from them stylistically, a bit more of a lush kind of poppier arrangement, not unlike the feel of like maybe a classic Elton John type song with some real strings, but a beautiful track and well worth checking out. It's a great album. I've been listening to it and I'll certainly be reviewing it soon. One of my favorites from the year. Temek has a new track called Methala. This is somewhat of a super group of sorts, or just a new prog metal band featuring Eric Gillette from the Neil Morse Band and Diego Tejeda from formerly of Hackett on the keys. So some notable figures here. And should be a really cool album based on the singles that have come out. This is an epic, I believe it's the closing track of the album, and it's an epic. It's really, really great, has some good proggy moments, some great soloing from both Diego and Eric. Just an incredible track that showcases the power of this band and their performance abilities. So should be a cool album to check out, one I'm sure I'll be covering on the channel. We've got King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with a trio of tracks here from their upcoming follow-up to Petrodragonic Apocalypse. The new album is going to be called The Silver Chord, and this trio of tracks is Thea, The Silver Chord, and Set. More in an electronic music vein. Of course, their previous album was more a thrash metal type project, not unlike Metallica and things like that. But now they're moving into more of an electronic music direction, and the singles sound pretty cool. So I'm interested to see how this plays out and what the new album will sound like. They're a chameleon type band that just does every style imaginable, and they're just super talented and do it all incredibly well. So definitely check that out if you haven't yet. Another great track from a project that I just adore, Mare. This is called Poison Waters. This is a duo of Mariana Simkina from I Am the Morning and Anna Murphy from Cellar Darling. Just a beautiful duo, incredible vocals, beautiful lush sounds and arrangements, just a beautiful ballad, a beautiful sweet sounding song with maybe a little tinge of darkness to it, but I just really adore this track. I think it's great and shows a lot of promise for this duo, and hopefully they release something of a full length. They've released a couple singles, but I'd be interested to hear what a full album could sound like with them. And then a duo of tracks, I haven't mentioned them yet, but Dirt Poor Robins have a couple tracks. I talk about them on the channel a lot. One of my favorite groups, a husband and wife duo that are just fantastic. Their new album is dipping into a bit of an 80s nostalgia type feel. They had a track called You'll Never Hear It Coming, which came out a few weeks ago, and now this week, Fever Dream, which is just fantastic. A beautiful track, really exciting and fun to hear them. They have an upcoming concept record coming out called Firebird. Not sure the exact release date at the moment. They've released several singles. They released an EP of tracks a few months ago, and now they're releasing some more tracks. So a really great experience, to get to hear all these tracks and get to formulate what the record will sound like as they release each song individually. So it'll be interesting to see what else they release leading up to Firebird and when that comes out. So incredible tracks. I really highly recommend checking these out. They're all really cool and a pretty diverse, eclectic group of songs here that are all great in their own right. As for the channel this week, I did 2 reviews. I did one of the new Steven Wilson album, The Harmony Codex. Maybe a bit of a mixed response to that album and to my video in particular. I loved it. I'm in the camp that it's really creative and a big, huge step of progressiveness for Steven Wilson, that he's really honing his craft. And even though it may not be the sound that a lot of traditional prog fans like, it's not really hearkening totally back to the Raven and Hank Cannot Erase. To me, it's forging new ground and doing something exciting and different, which I really appreciate. Taking stuff that he did on the Future Bites and expanding it, making it a bit more proggy and experimental and interesting, and bringing in influences from disparate parts of his career and forming it into something new and something really fresh and interesting. So I really adore it. I know there's some people who just totally don't get it and don't like it at all, and that's totally fine. I'm trying, I get sometimes defensive about my favorite artists, and I'm trying to take a step back and say, people are allowed to not like this, Obviously, it's not going to be for everyone. I get a little bit perturbed when it feels to me like people are objectively saying this is bad music and badly made, which to me just feels wrong, because I know Steven Wilson has a lot of artistic integrity and spent a lot of time working on this album and has really honed his craft and made it sound sonically amazing. So for people to dismiss it as just a piece of trash and not worth anybody's attention just doesn't feel quite fair. But if it's not your bag and not for you, and you personally just don't get it and don't like it, that's perfectly cool, and I'm going to let people have their opinions and not interject as much about this is how, what I think objectively about it. So, it's just, it comes down to personal preference and how you experience music. And for me, it works for me. For some others, it doesn't. And that's okay. That's how music works, right? That's the whole point of it. Sometimes it connects with somebody and sometimes it just leaves people cold. And some people are left cold by Steven Wilson and his recent releases, which is totally fine. And I did a review also of Advent Horizon's album, A Cell to Call Home, which I adore. I think that's one of the best releases. It's a little lesser known. So for those of you who may not have heard of Event Horizon, check it out. Check out the review. Check out their album, their tracks that are on YouTube, all of that stuff. Definitely well worth checking out and right in line with the taste that I have in music. More of that melodic, song-focused feel, but with prog flourishes and interesting, different prog instrumentation coming into the fold and adding a bit of variety and freshness to the music. So totally right up my street, and I hope it's up a lot of your guys' street and that you guys enjoyed that one. So a really cool couple of reviews. I have a cool couple of reviews to do next week as well. I'm being a little bit review heavy lately because I'm trying to catch up with a lot of these releases that I've been loving. I will get back to some of the top fives and rankings and some of those type shows. I'm planning a few of those in the near future, but for next week it's going to be a duo of reviews from Trevor Rabin, as I've mentioned, and then Bear Ghost. I feel like I have to talk about because it's one of my favorites from the year. Little lesser known once again, but deserves some spotlighting and attention. So as usual, we're going to have the typical Prog Song Sunday with Jana coming up this week, a classic prog track that I think many of you will love. So everything's going smoothly and there's a lot to enjoy and look forward to. A lot of big notable releases coming. So thank you guys for sticking around with me, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and I'll catch you guys in a future one. Enjoy the music, everybody. Bye.